Here is today's Obamacare disaster sob story. It is from the Weekly Standard. Headline, Pastor diagnosed with cancer. No compassion in the Affordable Care Act. Now, if this isn't a death panel, I don't know what you call it. You ready? A preacher, a pastor, a man of the cloth, recently diagnosed with cancer, covered under Obamacare, told a local Iowa reporter that there's no compassion in the Affordable Care Act. Back in January, this pastor was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer of the esophagus. He had insurance, but because of a previous heart condition, the insurance didn't cover the treatments he needed for his cancer. Pre-existing condition stuff. But wait, we were all told that you were covered with pre-existing conditions. The pre-existing condition crowd thinks they're covered, so they show up. So the preacher, diagnosed with stage 3 cancer of the esophagus, had insurance, but because of a previous heart condition, it didn't cover the treatments he needed for his cancer. And you know when he found out? He's in the place to get his chemo. He's hooked up. The chemo is soon to start flowing. And they come in and they tell him just minutes before the chemo starts. He said, one of the workers came and said, let me talk to you. And so I went and talked to her, and she said, we found out your insurance doesn't include chemo. He was at the chemo place. He was all ready to get the chemo. And then, wait a minute. Your insurance doesn't cover it. Over the past 2 months, the preacher and his family have emptied their savings account. They have racked up $50,000 in debt, and they signed up for Obamacare, according to the local reporter. Local reporter said $50,000 in debt. They signed up for Obamacare. They found it to be anything but affordable. It's going to cost them more than $800 a month, money they just don't have. The reporter adds that as a pastor, the man has devoted his life to helping others, to being compassionate, and he said there is no compassion in the Affordable Care Act. Now, how many times have you heard the president himself and his Democrat cohorts on television say that we had to do this because you are walking around and you are one illness away from bankruptcy. And we need Obamacare so that you are protected from that reality. You could be one illness away from bankruptcy. You need to sign up for Obamacare. So the preacher did it, and he is bankrupt. Now, the obvious solution, this preacher needs to look at his cable bill and his cell phone contract, and he needs to cancel one or both. That's what the president said the other day to an audience of young skulls full of mush. A millennial audience. Well, you know what? Healthcare, there's nothing sexy about that. And you may not, you need it, but you may not want to have it. There's no immediate benefit like your cell phone or cable TV, but and he went on to talk about canceling one or both. This is just one story. I'm sure you've heard countless others. They're everywhere. People. This one's two-pronged. The guy is ready to receive chemo, and somebody comes in, your insurance doesn't cover it because you got a heart condition. Oh, wait a minute, pre-existing condition. Your insurance doesn't cover chemo. And now, after signing up for Obamacare, the preacher is and his family, $50,000 in debt, and no compassion from anybody he's dealt with, and $800 a month for all this he doesn't have. And furthermore, the pièce de résistance is the preacher is a liar, according to Harry Reid. Because Harry Reid says that these stories are all made up, and the people telling these stories is lying about it, and they're given these stories by the Republicans to tell people. But there's no evidence that any of these stories are true.